All right, everyone. I'm Joseph Tabwa. Welcome to Craft Politics.
I'm Andrew Percy. Nice to see you all.
And we're got an extremely frustrated look about us because we have tried for the last hour to record and record with Australian colleagues. And the internet connection where we are this week is extremely poor, so we couldn't make it work. Maybe we'll try to make it work before the weekends. And so as a result, we've had to gather around the same microphone in the same hotel room. So if it looks a little suspicious, that's
we're in Quebec for this business planning week with our company, but it is going to look dodgy when I come walking out of your hotel room, especially with what I'm going to say as I leave, which is that was the worst night of my life ever. Try harder. But yeah, it does look very dodgy. But we are in the same hotel room. But we're in Quebec. We've had all these problems. But anyway, we did want to talk the Australian elections, which hopefully we might be able to do. But if not, we've got a beer anyway.
We got a beer. We are drinking Boréale IPA du Nord-Est with Krush.
Oh, that accent in French. It's not. You don't have a good. He doesn't have a good French accent. But anyway, it's Boréale IPA du Nord-Est, as we say properly in French, which is a local beer. But it's actually we'll do tasting notes at the end, but it's not too bad. Anyway, we got to do a quick
let's go. We go quick because we got to
meeting.
run on to the next thing. So, quick issues we should talk about. So, this is probably turning into a cheeky half. Let's start with U.S./Canada. Big news this week, obviously, was Mark Carney, Prime Minister Carney, I should say, attending a series of meetings in the White House. Well, meeting and a working lunch in the White House. Big day, barely a week after being elected. Single biggest issue he was elected on. This was the ballot question. Could he handle Trump? And so, a day later, what do you think?
I think he did all right. So he went down, sat there, did that whole chair thing with the president, and survived it. Didn't get trumped, didn't get JD Vanced. Was able to say Canada's not for sale. Did a bit of praise of Trump, which is, of course, everybody has to do to avoid getting JD Vanced, it seems.
Yeah.
But so far so good, and I think Canadians looking at that, putting aside our partisan bent, Canadians looking at that probably that's what they wanted. They got the Prime Minister on show there that they thought they were voting for because he was statesmanlike, he was calm, he was measured, and I thought he'd handled himself pretty well.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the expectations. This is how ridiculous things have become. Expectations are so damn low.
No.
Can you get to the White House, have a meeting with the president, and not get completely berated or embarrassed? And it makes me sad that those are the conditions, the measurement of success now.
Can you, as the leader of a G7 NATO ally, go to the United States and not be humiliated by the president and berated? As a leader of a nation whose men and women have served alongside American troops in very many wars, died together, all the rest of it. Can you go to the White House and not get berated and humiliated? And that is a really sad reflection on what's happened in US politics.
But Mark Carney's cleared that first hurdle, so that's encouraging, and a lot of positive stuff being said by mostly positive stuff being said by President Trump about wanting to work on this partnership, that Canada's a great place, that he seems to really like Carney and certainly likes him a lot more than the previous guy. So I feel like expectations are incredibly low. Cleared that first hurdle, and my hope is it at least creates the conditions where the Prime Minister can start to negotiate something.
Well, I mean, he did, before that meeting, tweet something out, didn't he, saying, Canada doesn't give us anything, I don't know why we even bother, I don't know what he wants from this meeting. Then he did the classic thing of you turn up, be nice to him, and Trump's nice back to you. But then Lord knows what happens the next day when his thoughts come rolling back to him and all kind of crap comes out of his Truth platform or whatever it's called. Truth Social, is it? But the bigger challenge for Carney will be maintaining that relationship and then, to get a deal on any of this stuff, tariffs, whatever, the whole relationship thing, something's going to have to give. And that means Canada's likely to have to give something, and that could affect sovereignty issues. It could be around a whole range of very complicated and difficult, painful political decisions in Canada. And at that point, that's where it gets problematic for Carney.
Yeah.
And then Canadians will have to say, well, is this what we wanted when we thought we were voting for Carney to go and sort the relationship with Trump out? But if it means some painful choices, I think good first day, but the jury is out because we just don't know where this is going to end yet as to whether or not we'll be sitting here in a week, 3 weeks, 3 months' time, a year's time saying, oh, yeah, he handled that well.
And we're already seeing the internal challenges it's creating on sort of national unity, right?
Yeah.
So even yesterday, Ontario Premier Ford came out, had really nice things to say about Mark Carney's performance. Alberta Premier Danielle Smith was a lot more hesitant, kind of took a couple shots at Doug Ford for having supported Carney in the federal election campaign.
What, conservatives arguing with other conservatives?
Yeah.
This is, I can't.
Our worst
As
enemies.
a British conservative, I can't relate to this. This is sounds so preposterous and impossible of a situation that a conservative would fight another conservative. It just, I'm sorry, it's just, I can't relate. But anyway, there we are.
So that's Canada, US, UK. What do we want to talk about?
I thought the interesting thing we had the UK local elections last week, which we'll talk about next week in more detail because they were very interesting in terms of what happened with the rise of reform and all the rest of it. But we'll talk about the next week. I thought the most interesting thing I saw, which I just kind of I think demonstrates the kind of mess that an identity crises that particularly the British Conservative Party is going through in the UK, is the signing of the UK-India Free Trade Agreement, which occurred yesterday. I think it's only the 16th trade deal India has signed, but it's much more expansive than the previous 15. So in many ways, this is a great win for the government. This is a deal that was started, the discussions, negotiations started under Boris Johnson, and it's now been signed under a Labour government. Now, the interesting thing about it is, one, it's actually a very big deal. Obviously, the size of the Indian economy is very significantly going to grow. So it's actually the UK is the first country to get a significant deal. That all aside, the two takeaways I think are interesting is you've got a Labour government now selling this deal as a really positive thing, when at the time, of course, they are also trying to do this reset with the EU, which potentially could limit some of our trade deals. But also, it's just strange that an anti-Brexit Prime Minister, which Starmer was, is now heralding something that's only become possible because of Brexit, which is a free trade deal, because obviously when you're in the EU, you can't negotiate trade deals. On the Conservative side of politics, so there's a kind of dilemma for them there of trying to cozy up to Europe. He's a big, regretter or whatever, but also now championing this Brexit freedom, something that Brexit freedom have given the ability to do. On the Conservative side, you've got the Conservative Party has come out against a particular element of it, which is this element which allows, for 3 years, Indian workers who come under the visa scheme within the treaty won't have to pay national insurance. So they put something out yesterday attacking basically this element of it on Indian workers. And I thought what was interesting about that is, one, there are 2 million people of Indian descent in the UK, of which the Conservatives did very well last time. So the Conservative Party coming out against, potentially, promoting this kind of negativity towards Indian workers could be quite problematic. But more interesting is, we started these negotiations. This issue of not paying national insurance is an agreement we have with lots of countries when people come on temporary worker schemes, because it's a double taxation issue. So you don't pay it in your own country and pay it in the UK, because you're not going to ever draw from national insurance, Social Security, because you're on these are 3 year limited visas. So just things like the Conservatives coming out against this very free trade thing, which is only in response to reform. I don't think this will end. I don't think this will end well for the Conservatives. One, it's avoiding double taxation. So we have these deals with countries all around the world, and yet now in opposition we've come out against it, which I think is ridiculous, given that we're a pro-Brexit party that was in favour of free trade, started these free trade negotiations. This is a perfectly normal part of it, and potentially it's stirring up all sorts of things against Indian workers, because that's the language that's being used. So I just think it's very interesting, because...
So is it some weird fear-mongering play?
Yeah, it is completely. It is. It's like, trying to out-reform reform
right.
on, something which is a normal part of trade deals, because basically it's a double taxation. So Conservatives should be in favour of avoiding double taxation, which is British workers who then go overseas under these deals don't then pay the tax, the national insurance element equivalent there because of these agreements. So it's a very anti-free trade thing from the Conservatives because it just demonstrates, a lot of words, but just demonstrates the complete identity crisis the Conservative Party is in. It doesn't know what it is. Is it trying to out-reform, which means you have to come out against some quite anti-trade things, because a lot of that base is in a very anti-trade mindset. So it's just very interesting.
And how much of it do you think is is it reactionary to the local elections? And it might be good just for our non-UK audience just to explain what happened very quickly last week. I know we're gonna do a deeper dive next week. We're gonna have a guest come on just to go really deep, but the 30-second version.
In short, the Insurgent Reform Party, led by Nigel Farage, ate the Conservative vote alive for its tea, basically. Last Thursday in the local elections, which took place in parts of England. Also, it ate the Labour vote, and now everyone is, I finished ahead on the national vote, which was 30% of the national vote, well ahead of the other parties. So is it in reaction to those? Not necessarily, but certainly I think there's some reaction here to the rise of Reform in general. And also Reform won a parliamentary by-election, one of Labour's safest seats. So both parties are now running around. It's interesting, Reform have come out against that element of this trade deal, and of course now the Conservatives have, which is just, in my mind, bonkers, because this is the deal we were negotiating.
Right.
And also that's a perfectly normal part of it. And it's of huge benefit to get this deal with India.
Yeah, massive deal. Massive market.
Massive market, big deal, the most expansive trade deal India's ever done, and the UK gets there first, even ahead of the US. But the Conservatives, because they're in this identity crisis of who are they, fighting. Anyway, we'll talk about the Reform rise next week, but I'm not sure trying to go toe to toe with Reform on something like this is going to work for the Conservatives.
Right, there we go. That's our quick hit list. So the question now was this beer.
Yes.
Was it as good for you as it was for me?
I hope no one can hear that. Was it as good for you as it was for me? I found it distinctly average, the whole experience. No, the beer is fine. It's Boréale is the brewery.
It's got like a nice peppery start, a little mango, like a bright mango punch to it.
I get tangerine and clementine.
Yeah.
Satsuma-y, that kind of
Yeah. It's not mind-blowing, but, it's pleasant. Tasting notes on the can say it's also got guava and mixed berries. I
don't get the mixed berries at all, no.
Yeah.
No. And as for guava...
That is what the Krush...
If I can quote Trump, I don't even know what that is. Nobody does. No one's heard of guava. So, I don't know what guava is.
Well,
I'm a lad from Hull, so... Not Hull, Quebec, Hull, England, just to be clear.
Yeah, just to be clear.
Anyway, but it's a perfectly nice beer... decent to drink, and happy to be drinking it.
Perfect. All right. Well, we'll finish this off. Thanks for listening, guys. We'll be back, hopefully, if not later we'll try to be back later this week with an Australian analysis. If not, we'll be back in your feed next week to talk UK elections.
And also, that bit about, because I'm in the room, I have to shower with you. That we don't have to do that, do we? Just to be clear. But I know you said it's just normal, but anyway, Australian elections and Reform. I've already showered.
Yeah. All right.
Bye.
Bye, guys.